and I'm happy to be here this afternoon to be able to talk you through all kinds of information registry. We're going to walk through a lot of detail. Please know that this is recorded, and we will be posting the recording so that you can refer back to it. There's a lot of information, but there are a lot of documents that we use to support all of that, and you'll be able to see those as we go along. And let's see, I'm just going to try to be able to move my slide. All right, so here's where we're gonna start. We may have some folks that are only on the phone, so hello to you all. We hope that you'll be able to watch this recording later, so you'll be able to see all of the information in more detail. I know it's hard on a phone. As I said, we are recording it. If you have the opportunity to ask questions in the chat, we ask that you potentially hold the questions until the end. We're going to go through a lot of information, and then we're going to do questions to make sure that we cover as much as we possibly can. So hold those questions to the end in the anticipation that most things will probably get answered as we go along. And then also know that OEC registry staff are available to help, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go as well. So, do you know the registry? Here's just a few fun things for you to contemplate as we're making sure everybody is on the call and ready. Prior to July 1, 2013, when the staff moved to the brand new Office of Early Childhood, what was the registry known as? We'll see who's going down memory lane with me here. Was it A, Connecticut Careers and Courses, B, Careers, Courses, and Childhood, C, Connecticut Charts of Course, or D, Chaos, Chaos, and Chaos? You can put your answers in the chat for fun. We'll see where we land with everybody. If you are answering C, you are correct. That is the old holdover. That's why it is ccacregistry.org. When we moved to the OEC in July of 2013, Connecticut Charts of Course was going away. But here we are years later, still holding on to that, and just have rebranded in other ways. Number 2, how many staff are currently assigned to the registry? Is it A, 5, B, 9, C, 12, D, it seems like no one, E, seems like everyone? And don't worry, you can have a sense of humor here with us, because we sure try to keep ours as well. The answer is A. There are 5 of us small but mighty little people working on this. And number 3, how likely is it that content shown in this session may change over time? A, very likely, B, somewhat likely, and C, not likely. You know the answer is going to be A, very likely. Change is the one constant in life. And some of you have been with us for a long time on this journey, so you already know how things change. All right, so where are we going today? We are going to have a packed agenda of the what, who, and why of the registry. We're going to bounce through logging in, security, the privacy policy, and then we're going to go through a lot of details of what you see, who sees what, how you set things up to be compliant with the things that you need to as an OEC-funded program. We're going to dabble through all that. We're even going to get into a little Care for Kids. Some of you are not Care for Kids funded, but we're going to jump into that for a little minute. We're going to talk about reports. And then the end part of this session is for school readiness liaisons. So we will hop right along. All right, the what. So y'all hopefully know the registry is found at ccacregistry.org. As I said before, it stands for that formerly known as Connecticut Charts of Course Registry.org. And it's essentially a very large database. It tracks a lot of information. What does it track? Well, if you think about the registry, every participant has one of these bubbles, right? That is the participant's account. And in that account is all their information about their employment details, their education, their training, any special applications, scholarship, right? So all that data then wraps up into other things. If you consider your program, let's say you've got 50 staff, so you have 50 of these bubbles, and they all wrap up into your program data. But individually, that staffer can apply for scholarship, can apply for the licensing head teacher certificate, right? There are all kinds of different things that the data wraps up into. You make one account, and it stays with you forever and ever. We help people out who sometimes inadvertently make a second account and have trouble with data, but just keep in mind, one-time account. All right, so the who. As I said, we've got 5 current staff, 5 powerhouse staff. Tiffany Alexander, me, Karen Jasper, Valerie Parks, Margaret Westwood. We are in the process of hiring 4 more education advisors and solidifying a data position. So we are truly small but mighty. The registry has grown a lot over time and has most recently, under Commissioner Bai, had a livable budget to be able to make changes and upgrades and make things more user-friendly where we can. So you can expect more of that as we go along. A lot of growth opportunity happening here. At the bottom of every registry page is a link that says Contact Us, and that's where all this information lives. So as we have on new staff, you'll be able to see that map on the right change. There will be different assignments happening and things will get restructured. So watch that in months to come. Now here's the why. So essentially what happens is, as your program accepts funds from the OEC, it comes with requirements that have to get met. And then we have to figure out how to track compliance with those requirements. And as we do that, we have these implementation pieces called general policies that say, here's what you have to do and how you're going to do it. And then we have the state-funded monitoring tool, which is what your OEC grant program managers use. So y'all will be familiar with that. And I'm not sure that I said this, but we do have the OEC grant program managers on the webinar with us to be able to help answer questions and navigate things. So we're always looking for information back from you all, but these should be things that are not new to you, but that we hope you'll get very familiar with. The general policies are found on the OEC website. We've got the link right there. A lot of detail in those. So good overview to sit down, take a little gander through there. So think of the registry as kind of the way to be able to show what your program is doing. But it also has a lot of tools, and hopefully as we go through today, you'll be able to see some of that. The second part of the why is around the data. And so as you can see there, we've got the little clip from the White House briefing about the universal pre-K and things that are coming down the road. So know that your data helps to inform all kinds of decision making. So it isn't simply just at the OEC level that this happens or at the Connecticut level, but that our data also is used at the national level to help to see what can happen next. And here's an example of how this happens. So just in trying to give you a little bit of a more concrete idea of how we use data, this is literally just snapped right out of work that we do every year for the National Institute for Early Education Research, or NEER. And every year they collect data from all the states about state-funded programs and education levels and wages. So you will recognize that this is information that we ask for from you all, right? And you'll see that we've identified, this is the wage data specifically. So number 1, the top section, is wages from designated QSMs. And the way that NEER asks for it is broken out by public schools and then all other settings. And you'll see we then give school readiness funded, CVC funded, Smart Start funded, and then all those combined for average salaries. Right? And so why is this important? Well, it's really important because, as you just saw at the previous slide, we share our aggregate wage data with a variety of places, including nationally, And we have to chop off a lot of data that's bad. What's bad data? Well, as an example, the minimum wage went up on August 1st of 2021 to $13 an hour. So if in your staff confirmation page you have folks who are making less than $13 an hour, we have to take off your data and it doesn't count. On the flip side of that, we have some people who get put in who are making $1 million a year. And I would like that job. I'm not sure who has that. Well, I do know who had that, and they don't have that amount anymore because we have to take it out. So periodically, you'll know that we contact you and ask you to clean up some data and help us out, because we want the best data to be able to say, this is the reality of early childhood in Connecticut, and this is what needs to change. Wage is a great one because we all agree that wages need to be better. Here's another example of how we use data. This was looking at the most recent of the Care for Kids deadlines. So as you know, in September 30th of 2018, the new federal requirements went into place. But the economy was in a really rough spot, and who would have thought it would have gotten worse with the pandemic? So fast forward now to September 30th of 2021, and you can see in those few weeks the amazing volume that y'all were sending in to the registry staff. So a lot more documents processed, even when you take into account that the same time last year was sort of coming back from the pandemic. Folks were back at school, center enrollments were picking back up, right? But we still were sort of living some of that lag time. But look at the amazing number of that row for first aid, CPR, med-admin, and epi trainings, right? From 770 the year before to almost 3,600. And I can tell you, because you guys are the ones who are sending them, we are still jammed up. Karen Jasper's a couple rows over from me right this minute, cranking away on those. So note on here, you know, I said small but mighty. We do have a 7 to 10 business day document processing time, and sometimes it's going to be a little bit longer. We're going to help you to figure out how to make it shorter, because we want things to get turned around as fast as possible too. All right, so what do we need to be talking about here? There are general policies for a variety of things for OEC funded programs. GPAO3 is specific to the registry. Now I'm going to go over a lot of detail here for the programs, and then at the end we're going to talk specifically to the school readiness liaisons about what's in their GPs regarding the registry. So as you can see, what we are asking or requiring is that part-time and full-time teaching and administrative staff members have accounts and that they're current with transcripts, diplomas, teaching and administrative endorsements, and credentials. If you have other staff, they are welcome to join as well, but they are not required to be in according to the general policy. Right? Then every program is going to designate at least one person, one leader, who's going to be responsible for making sure that detail is up to date and that this is compliant. In that bottom section, you can see we ask for some specific things, that you look at the program details at least twice a year, and as program data changes. We want to make sure everything's right, that you identify every classroom or group regardless of funding. Now this is specific to the early childhood classrooms, right? So we want to make sure that we have the funded classrooms in there, and then if you happen to have, let's say you have 2 classrooms that are preschool age that have OEC funding, and then you have 4 classrooms that don't have OEC funding that are also preschool age. You have to include all those preschool classrooms. All right, so the legislation is very specific in an attempt to not silo or fragment programs and say like one classroom has different quality because it has different funding. When you receive OEC funding, it becomes in every classroom regardless of funding. And then every classroom, you will identify the funding sources, and you'll assign a staff and designate their roles and identify the qualified staff member in that classroom. You'll make sure that new hires within 30 days have an account and have sent in all their info. And then that you'll take a look at that staff confirmation page monthly and make sure everything is up to date, including those wages. and given us information about anyone working toward a degree. Again, all that helps us to be able to plan and to talk to legislators and to make good choices. So that's a little bit about what we're going to cover today, because that is what's required in the general policy. So the fastest way that you can get to GPA03 compliance is to follow some tools that we actually have already set up in the registry. So when you are on the landing page, and this is a screenshot of before you log in, right? On the left, there's a program administration tab, and the bottom choice, when you click on it, is QSM instructions. And then there's a step-by-step. When you open up that, you actually see screenshots and helpful tidbits to help you navigate through every piece of this. And I will tell you also, y'all asked us to be able to make some tools available when you have logged in. So everything that you see there on the left menu is also available after you log in under My Resources. All right, so just so you know, there are things that we've tried to make available multiple places. So those QSM instructions, as I said, this is just a quick screenshot of what it looks like, really walks you through from the very beginning, making sure that you have admin access, knowing once you get it where you go. It's a very linear tool, so it's very specific and intentional. Start here, you get your admin access, you log in, you edit your program details, you check your funding, on and on and on. All right, allowing time for each of those things to be able to happen. All right. And I do want to note, the team has been through a lean process a few years ago to look at how we do things and how we reduce the number of clicks. And I know it doesn't seem like it sometimes for you all. We're hoping that the more you use the registry, the more comfortable you'll get with it, but also the more opportunity you'll have to say to us, hey, here's a place that could definitely have some better clicks on it. And that's sort of why we have these TA documents too. As you're getting used to the system and trying to navigate it, we don't want you to work harder. We want you to go in, do your work, get out. We know this is one thing that you have to do among many other things. So work smarter, not harder is definitely a theme in our camp. All right, let's chat for a minute about logging in, security, and the privacy policy. So we recently did some updates to our security module because we're about to run some monetary incentives for qualifications, and we needed to do a big update. So we want to take a little bit of extra time to remind people about basics and then some new things that you're seeing. So the accounts belong to the individual. I know that this can be hard because as the person responsible for the program, sometimes directors and leaders want to have control over everybody's accounts. And I'm here to tell you, it's not a good course of action. All right, we've had some participants who have left programs and taken legal action against folks in the program who kind of ran their accounts, had access to things, used things inappropriately, and represented them incorrectly. So if you, in your good efforts, went down that path, we'd like you to back out of that and make sure that the individual owns the account, runs the account, keeps all of the information. As we say, treat it as you would your bank account login credentials. All right, we don't want anybody getting in trouble with this. Once you make an account, you're not making a new one, right? That's going to follow you. If you go from place to place, if you're hiring someone who previously worked in another program and had an account already, they are not making a new one. All of their information is actually going to follow them when they say, nope, I no longer work at 123 program, I now work at XYZ program. Information follows the account holder. If you forget your password, right under the login, there is a forgot your password link, and it will send an email to the address that's used for the login. You'll click on that link and it'll help you set up a new password. The link does expire, much like if you requested a link for your bank account or something like that. So you want to use it, and then if it's expired, just go back and trigger a new one. right? Passwords are expiring now. This is something that is new. And I know that this is not one of people's favorite things. I know even in our team, we groaned about this a bit because it sure does make life easier when you don't have to keep remembering and changing things. But in this world of great security, we do have to make sure we take good steps. So passwords now expire every 3 months. You'll get asked to redo it. And it is just one of those things that in this world I think is super important. And I know that we can handle that. The privacy policy is linked at the bottom of every page of the registry. So I think it's really valid for people to ask questions about how data is used, who can see what, right? Information is included in our privacy policy about all that. And if you still have questions, we welcome those questions. I think our biggest one recently is around the use of the Social Security number. That is very intentional because it is the unique identifier that we use to go back to the background check, and we'll soon be linking the background check information system data with the registry so that we'll have a few more good tools for all of the programs. But it is that unique identifier that we're using to be able to figure out how to link data best. All right, your account, what you see differs, right? I know I'm talking to a lot of program administrators right now and liaisons, facilitators. You have different access points on your left nav. So when you log in, your left nav is going to look different from your teaching staff left nav bar. All right. And it's not to be concerned about. There will be some things where you'll want to have access and you'll click on something and it'll say, can't do that without confirmed staff or confirmed employment. We'll walk you through that in a minute. But just know that the tools do differ depending on different requests that are approved. There are edits in your sections on your profile editor, but it doesn't allow you to edit everything. There's some information that we don't let you edit once you make an account. For example, your name, your date of birth, and your social security number. Now those are locked intentionally when you make an account for fraud prevention, right? To make sure that folks don't go and say, my good friend Susie Snowflake needs my qualifications to get this job. So I'm just going to switch over my name so it looks like she has the qualifications to go get the job. And then later I'll switch the name back. And believe it or not, we did have people who would do that way in the beginning of the registry back in 2007. And we learned. So there is a fair bit of pertinent detail here and there that is locked. So what do you do if there's something wrong, right? You can see Howdy Doody is my my very old dummy account. His former last name is Awesome. Now he may have put that in a joking mood one day and then later decided that really isn't so cool because now that shows up everywhere. I better call the registry staff and have that corrected. We are happy to help you to correct things. Get a hold of us. We will help you to correct them. If you have a name change, or staff has a name change, we've got information about that on the landing page. And we have some frequent questions on the right of the landing page. We just need a document that shows both of the names so that we can make the switch. But there's more detail on the landing page about that. Again, good security things. What you see is different on the mobile version. So thank you all for the really great feedback about the mobile version. We have seen this just absolutely explode. We know it's not as exciting for the admin access users, the directors and administrators of programs, because those tools are too complex for the mobile version. I know we're going to get into these screens in a minute and go through it, but trust me, our eyes cannot handle the complexity of the detail that's on those screens, just not made for mobile. But the good news is your staff can manage all of their functions on mobile, including the scholarship requests and the online training, which are the most common requests. They can also request head teacher and ECTC through the mobile version. And I think the thing that we hear the most positive feedback from everybody is uploading documents through the mobile version. Take a picture on your phone, click through your account, upload those documents. Super easy. We love that. All right, here we go. So how do you get access, right? You don't want that everyday access because you're the director. Well, maybe you do, but too late for that now. You took the job, so we're going to help you out with those opportunities. So it's an application, and part of the application is a verification form that does have to get completed. We ask for it to be signed off by the supervisor or the owner, and it gets uploaded to your account. Then you're allowed to go in and request admin access on the left navigation bar. So remember, we think about things as the application is in the registry, but sometimes we have forms that are used to support the application. It's kind of like when you go for a loan and you have to bring pay stubs and whatnot to support your application for a loan. So remember that you have that step. Programs can have more than one admin access user. We actually encourage this, and we want programs to think about it because it is a program by program decision. But really thinking through what's the emergency or succession planning, what are the backup systems that programs have in place. So even if it's something as simple as I'm taking a vacation for 2 weeks, finally, and I need somebody who can go in and make sure the new staff pieces are uploaded to the account and whatnot. Who else is there? So we do give some more information on the admin access form to help programs to be able to think about that. If you are a director or leader who has oversight of more than one program and you need access to more than one program's tools, we call that multi-site administrative access, or MSA access, and that gets covered in the admin access form as well. As you can see in that bottom right picture or screenshot, there are tools that are specific to each program to which you have access. We don't put the programs all together and jumble the staff. We have had people ask about that, but what we have found is that staff work specifically at one site, and at one site they stay within the tools. So that helps everybody to keep site by site specific. You'll see that there are administrative tools on top and reports on the bottom. So we're going to walk through the administration tools first: edit program details, building and managing rooms and staff confirmation, and so on. We'll take a little walk through those. All right, editing the program details. So once you have admin access, on the left navigation bar, you have a program administration tab about halfway down. And the program administration tab then opens up those tools. And I picked, for this one, edit program details to go in and look at that. So we're in the first one. Let me back up for a second and show you. So we went to, get my cursor over here, program administration right here, and then up to edit program details is my first stop. Okay, and this is the place that in the GP it says we're going to go at least twice a year to make sure everything is accurate. And so I remind myself I'm in the program profile. This isn't mine anymore. My little bubble linked up to this one, right? So here's the program's ID number, 1914. Here's the legal or official name of the program. If you are a licensed program by OEC, we will use the name that is on the license. If you are a Board of Ed program, our protocol is the name of the town, BOE at whatever school. So Weathersfield Board of Ed at Emerson Williams School, for example. A lot of information on here, but again, for you to check to see, right? Here's our contact information. Is this accurate? The phone number for the program, the licensing information, funding here, right? You'll notice the edit button. When you click on this, it'll allow you to see what has been tagged to the program, but some of it is actually grayed out. OEC staff are responsible for tagging any OEC funding. We tag it and we untag it. You will be responsible for any program fees or other sources. And again, use that QSM step-by-step instructions. There's a lot of little tidbits in there, helpful hints on what to do. The attestation for Care for Kids we'll talk about a little bit later when we get down to Care for Kids. And then in the accreditation and reporting section, we're looking here specifically to see this progression of time, right? Obviously this is a dummy account, so it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. But if I'm looking at this and I say, this program is currently accredited, it has a valid until date of May 31 of 2023. Well, that tells me that I should be able to look to see annual reports, and because it's already accredited, I should also see an NAOAC decision report listed here. There should be a date here. And I'm going to talk in just a second and show you a couple things about how we get that information from you. If your program has accepted funds, OEC funds, but is not yet accredited, then under state funded accredit by date, your OEC grant program managers will have put in the date by which you have to achieve your NAOAC accreditation. In the interim, you will do environmental rating scales. You'll have those assessments done, you'll send in the details, we'll put in the date. If your program is Head Start approved, we have these options for your documents. So the initial grant award letter, your class review, and then your Focus Area 1, Focus Area 2 review documents. And we are aware that as you get these things, like the grant award typically doesn't list the program name, it lists the grantee agency, and then we work with you to make sure that we have all the right connections, so we know that, for example, EdAdvance may be the grantee agency, but then has programs underneath it that receive the funding. And then we look to see that all these other documents are in place over the lifeline of the program. So let's chat for a minute about these and how we get that information. On the page that has the GPs, there's also a link to this document. And this identifies all these different pieces of information and the funding streams or sources and how they get into the registry. And you do them through the program file manager. All right, it takes away a lot of the guessing. Some of you will remember this from a long time ago, from when you had to name everything and send it into us to a different email address, and it was very clunky. So we're really happy with the way that this works now. Let me just switch to the next screen so that we can take a look at it and I can pop back if needed. So you're using your admin access tools and you're going to the program file manager. All right, you choose to upload a new document, and just so you know, like, we try not to put a lot of words on pages, but the words that we put there, we hope some people will read because they do help you. So this reminds you that this is for program documents. All right, I'll talk a minute about those individual documents for individual staff. It tells you about how to get ready to upload and who receives the email here for program documents, and then how to upload. You can also see previous uploads and their status. So this was, obviously, this is a test account. There's an ERS there, and it was denied because it was already expired. Again, it's just a dummy one. But here's our drop down. So if I'm picking accreditation and governance, here are all these documents that we just had back on this page. Right? So when you're looking at your program profile and you're seeing all of these, you're looking to see, did I send in the most recent? Does OEC have what we are supposed to have? And we get a lot of questions about what exactly everything looks like. For the NAOAC screenshots, there is a status ribbon that is at the top of your page, and it includes the name of the program, the valid until date, and important dates. That will change when it gets to your 4th annual report. Once you click through that, you're into the renewal. Again, just a screenshot of this page is what we're looking for. Right? If you have a multi-page document, like an accreditation decision report, a Head Start grant approval, or an ERS, we're looking for all of the pages that were included in that document. All right, if you send us pages 1 through 3 of 9, it'll get denied as incomplete. So the whole thing. And here's a happy sidebar for you. Right? For those of you who use this, you love it. We hear it from you a million times over. For those of you who are starting to use it, some of you are not so happy because you're learning how to use it, right? This is the multiple attendee training submission form. This is not related to your accreditation and governance documents, but is related to your first aid, CPR, med admin, and emergency anaphylaxis training. You can do this page with your trainer, all right, and go through it the same date, the same time, the same trainer, the same training to use this form. Right? This is what you use instead of sending us individual certificates. Saves you a lot of time, right? But it has to be done right. And so that's the part that makes some people grumpy until Karen has a chat with them and they learn about it. So the training name up here has to be the official name. So for example, if you were using American Red Cross, Connecticut Child Care, and CPR. I think we're getting some backup noise from somebody. Can you just make sure that you're on mute, please? Awesome, thank you. All right, but again, this makes for a very happy program administrator, right? The completed form goes in and you don't end up having to submit individual certificates. This is licensing approved on our end, and we do audits of them periodically too to make sure that all of the rate information is really there, that everything was done correctly. And here's how you get to it: forms, multiple attendee training submission. Okay. Happy little shortcut. All right, but then you also have individual staff documents. And as we said, with admin access, you do have conveniences to help you get the job done. So if you are trying to upload, let's say you have education documents for staff who have just completed degrees. Fantastic, hooray, celebrate. You're going to go on your left nav down to participant documents. You can view and upload for yourself or for your staff. Now remember, the only people you're going to see in this section for your staff are those that you have already confirmed. All right, so you have to make sure that you've done that first. You get a drop down of the different staff, you pick that person and what the document is that you're going to upload, and away you go. It's also super convenient for looking to see if you've already sent something in and you're not sure what the status is. You asked Buffalo Bob to let you know when he got the email about the file, and he has not let you know. You want to go in, take a look. You'll be able to see if it's pending, if it's been verified, or if it has been denied. You'll be able to see what those denial reasons are, and then you can follow up from there. You can also click into the files there and open them up. So let's say you uploaded something and it was denied, and it says it's got some blank fields that are required to be filled in. Then you can go open it up and see exactly what was there. And you can always call us if you have a question about that. All right, so we said you can only look at the tools for confirmed staff. So we were going to hop back over to the staff confirmation and take a look at that. These are again under your admin access tools. And when you click on staff confirmation, you end up seeing this type of screen. Any new staff who you haven't addressed yet will show up in the pink as unconfirmed. Any staff that have already been confirmed show up under the blue. And this last updated date is the last time that you clicked through to say everything is accurate and up to date. Now, GPA 03 says that you're going to check this monthly. And so when we're looking and your grant program managers are looking and the liaisons are looking, they're looking at this date. You'll see that other screens have different dates when you update them. I'll try to remember to point those out when we get to building rooms and assigning staff. But those things don't change as readily as this page, and that's why we use this one, because wages change and staff change. And so this is the page that you're going to come to every single month. I suggest you set a calendar task, put it in your Outlook. If you use a paper calendar, that's fine. Tack it on up there, but set a day that is your regular day to get it done every month. All right. Also important to note on this page, right, this is the information that is current for that person. So let me go forward a minute and you'll see in here, there is a start date. This is the start date of this information. It is not their date of hire, right? So this does not say date of hire. It says the start date. This is when they started making $16 an hour, or when they started working with multiple age groups in a program that serves infants or toddlers, or changed to teacher. This is just for this data. Their date of hire is actually on their profile, so you can click back to the profile if you want to see it. It'll also show up on your staff qualifications detail report, which is listed down here. All right, so here are some fun facts for you. Buffalo Bob is inactive. What is that? And how annoying is that, right? All right, that just means that he has not done his annual renewal of his account. Every year, an account will trigger renewal emails to say to folks, it's time for you to go in, make sure all of your information is correct. And so many of you have done this, right? But occasionally we have staff who haven't really had a reason to go in. All their degree information's already in. They're not looking for scholarship. They don't want head teacher anymore. They just haven't been in. But we need them to go in because we want to make sure that their data is accurate. And when we have them go in for that renewal, they're going to check to make sure their contact information is correct as well. Super useful for when they're trying to get a hold of us and we're trying to get a hold of them and we're having trouble because their email is dead, the phone's different, right? So inactive, we want you to encourage them to please go in and make sure that they do their renewal. Right? Helpful hint down here, if you click view profile for any of your staffers, you can see the email address that the user has for logging in. So if Buffalo Bob says, I keep trying this and it's not working, or I don't have access to this anymore, you can confirm what email address they're using, whether or not they're trying the right one. And then if they don't have access to that anymore, give us a call. We will help to reset it. All right, but this is a funny one. I was just telling a couple of the grant managers. I had a call this morning from an account user, and I listed back her email address for her, and I said, is that correct? And she said, yes. And then she repeated it, but she repeated a different one. She stuck in another letter in her name. First name, last name, first initial, and some numbers. I said, that's not what I said. Hold on. You were missing that letter when you made the account. So sometimes we have to slow down and we have to look at what we're doing. And I find that this has been just one of those really interesting things for program administrators or admin access users to be able to take a look at. Start date is not data hire. This is the one I talked about before. Remember, this on staff confirmation is just the date for the most current data. All right, you want to make sure the wages and the hours are correct. All right, this is really important in here that we're making sure that all of these fields are up to date for all the reasons I already mentioned, and because these pieces right here are actually going to be pieces of eligibility for upcoming incentives that we have as well. So make sure that all this detail is correct. The enrolled in an ECE degree, right? If you have somebody who's going to school for that ECE degree, this is a yes. What's their graduation year projected, and where are they going to school? This is what we want to know to be able to forecast out and look at trends and see where we might need some more scholarship money. If you have a year that is in the past for projected graduation year, you're going to want to change that one. All right, and then what do you do to get the last update date to change? Click submit on any field, right? But you can open up all these by view all, make sure everything is right. Click submit, it changes it. And I say down here, a really super fast way to make sure everything is up to date is first, open your staff qualifications detail report. It has all of the information from the staff confirmation page. And you can quickly point out and say, oh, I got to get these new wages. I need to find out if Selena Gomez is still on track to graduate this year. I think she had a slowdown because of the pandemic, right? Use these things, use these tools to help you move along. If you're dropping somebody, this has been a hot question too, you're going to put in an end date up here. Put in their end date, click no for confirm, click submit. The system is going to have a little pop-up and it's going to say, do you really want to get rid of Buffalo Bob? And you're going to click yes. And then Buffalo Bob is gone off of all of your tools. All right, so now we've got all of our staff set, we've got our program detail set, we checked our funding, right? Now we're going to make sure that we have the rest of our program all built out. So back under your admin access tools, you've got building and managing rooms, right? I have a screenshot here for our test OEC program that already has 3 rooms built. And it shows me that the last time I did any update on the rooms was in June of this year. So again, this is not the date that we're using to look at for you doing your monthly updates. Okay, that's from the staff confirmation page. This is the last time anything was changed here in the room builder. So what might I change? I might add a room. If I click add room, I get this whole screen. All right, really easy to set up. And once you set these up, they stay until you're not using the room anymore. You're going to delete the room, or you go into edit to say how many of the spaces may have changed for the funding. But I say to folks, try to remember, you do some front loading work. You build your rooms out, you assign the staff, and then what you're doing is on that monthly basis, you're going in just to see, did I have a staffing change? Did I move people? Did my enrollment change dramatically in the rooms, right? You're not going in to do these changes on a daily basis. That would not be a good use of your time. But on that monthly basis, and you're saying, are all these things still the same? This is where I want to check on things. So building and managing rooms. And we always say, and this is something that's in the QSM instructions too, don't name a classroom after a teacher, because what happens to staff? Sometimes they move on up and they become your assistant director, or they move on out and go to another program, right? Then you're going to delete the room and rebuild the room, which isn't a big deal, but it's just a hassle, right? So name it whatever room it is, the blue room, room 102, the puffins, you know, pick the real name so that when you have OEC come in to do monitoring, whether it's your liaison or your grant program manager, they want to be able to say, I'm going to go to the puffin room and I want to see Miss Jessie and so on and so on. Who are the real people who are there? All right, let's move on to assigning staff. We've got our rooms built. We've got our staff. This screen shows you we've already done a fair bit of assigning. But if this were blank, I would click on the employee and it would give me a drop down of all of my confirmed staff. Then I would get to pick the role and I would be able to assign them a room if they were assigned to a room. You'll see down here, Howdy Doody is tagged as the operational administrator and the pedagogical administrator. Those are unassigned because those roles are outside of classrooms. If Howdy Doody legitimately was also a teacher, let's say in the green room every afternoon from 12 to 5, then Howdy Doody would also have a role as teacher in here, in that room for those times. Right? But we listened to you all when we set this up and changed it over time because we allow you 2 different ways to get to your staff. The first is just managing the staff, assigning everybody, but you can also go into the classroom, right? So you go back to building and managing rooms and you can click manage staff because who did I already put in here? Who do I want to take out? Who do I want to add in? This is also the place where we're designating the QSM, the qualified staff member. So the registry is always going to, as I said, only give you who's confirmed staff from your drop-down. You pick their role, and then the registry will automatically tell you who is QSM eligible, meaning you have them in the role of the teacher, not an assistant teacher, right? The GP says QSM has to be in the role of teacher, responsible for all those duties. And then the registry also tells you the expiration date for the QSM for their level of education. And why is that handy? Well, because if you're looking at your compliance and you get to pick, then I would think that you would pick the person who has the best expiration date in relation to the legislation. What if you have many people who are QSM eligible? That's totally up to you to pick who this is then. It doesn't make a difference to us. We hope that that person truly is in the role of teacher, as it is dictated in legislation in the GP. And we hope that they are doing really great work for those kids. But you get to pick. It doesn't impact on your HR decisions in here. You may have two great qualified people, and one's the opener, one's the closer. They both have great characteristics, but one of them actually has a bachelor's degree in EC, and the other one has a CDA credential. Your bachelor's degree is going to trigger you higher with your QSM compliance. So something to think about on that. You can also see in this view, right, these are all your staff of the blue room. You have a QSM assigned, right? Really important distinction there. You, as the program, designate who the QSM is for all the reasons we just said. Some of you have lots of people who qualify, some of you have different dates, so you get to make that decision. There's a lot of detail about qualified staff member in GPA01. Okay, again, back to the OEC website, GPA01, these are just screenshots directly from it. The ultimate goal here is this column D, right? 100% of the designated qualified staff members have a qualifying bachelor degree in early childhood education. And here are the options that are allowed, right? We have a list of teacher certifications in that GP. You can refer to those. They can have a B-level ECTC, early childhood teacher credential. They can have a bachelor degree or higher, specifically in ECE, that's verified in the registry. And then way back a long time ago, we grandfathered a whole lot of people in who had a bachelor's degree in any field plus 12 credits in ECE. That was a one-time grandfathering. I get asked sometimes if we will still grandfather people. That is a no. There is no directive right now to grandfather people. It was a one-time opportunity. So here are the different benchmarks that are set up for you to get to 100% of your designated qualified staff members having one of those options. And this can be a little confusing because there are a lot of options in here, from CDA all the way up the track to the bachelor's options. The best course of action is to make sure that you are working with staff on a regular basis to make sure that they are moving toward that bachelor degree. So when you're having those performance reviews and you're having your staff meetings, are you talking about OEC scholarship? Are you talking about those goals? We know that it's hard work. We do for sure. We've been talking about that an awful lot lately. But some of the information in this GP will help you to be able to see where staff are, and then the use of the tools in the registry will help you see exactly where your program falls. So let's go back over here to reports, because we were just talking about this. Right, so we give you a lot of reports where all of that program data wraps up, right? So you got all those bubbles for those individual account holders, and we wrap up all that data into these tools for you. An easy way to be able to see what's in what is when you go to your instructions on the landing page, the instructions for administrators. Part of that also includes all this detail. This is just a little snippet of the detail, but it tells you every single thing that's included in each one of these reports. right? So that's a good place to go to be able to take a look to say what exactly is in which place. How do I know where to go? What should I be looking at? I think we all have our favorites over time. Staff qualifications detail report for me is one of my absolute go-tos when I'm talking with programs. There's a lot of data in there that tells me immediately who's confirmed, what their education levels are, if they're working toward degrees, if they are QSM eligible, and if they're designated to a classroom. A lot of info there. Staff education training reports are an ongoing, everything that's ever been verified. So sometimes we get asked, you know, hey, how do I know what's showing up for all of my staff? I sent in this information, and how do I know what got accepted? The staff education training report is going to show you exactly what is listed on your staffers listing on the report. The NAYC report is the one that we encourage you to send in lieu of all of the transcripts to NAYC. We are still working with them to hopefully get that magic button so you don't have to upload this NAEYC report for every single staff member. Still beats uploading all the transcripts, but we want that magic button that just says, see the registry report for everybody. QSM compliance report. This is a super long one. Again, go back into these directions so you see all the fields in it. Never open up a registry report and go to click print without knowing what's in there. The summary report is a much nicer slimline one that will give you better detail in a very quick view. Classrooms and staff, these summary reports tell you very quickly all the information from when you assigned staff and when you set up your classrooms. So if you have 25 classrooms and you have 1 million staff, instead of going in and clicking in each classroom to see if anything needs to be updated, I would pull this report myself and I would say, okay, has anything changed in that? Take a quick look. Oh, the blue room needs a little update. Got to go in there, switch that. Same thing for staff assignments. I can look really quickly, see who's assigned where, make any changes. OEC Health and Safety Orientation Report is the Care for Kids report, and that is specific to the orientation, which is meeting and maintaining. We like those words for both NAYC accreditation and Head Start approval, and we also now like it for Care for Kids, because you have to make sure that everybody meets this orientation. It's not just one and done for a program, because obviously you have staff turnover, so all new staff have to meet that. Let's chat for a minute about Care for Kids. All right, so in September 2018, federal requirements took hold. There is a orientation level that every staffer or every program has to meet, and that includes the designated director or leader and all teaching staff. New hires have 90 days to complete it. And your options are the 5-hour online Care for Kids health and safety training, plus first aid and CPR and med admin certifications, or the 18-hour online Care for Kids health and safety training. All right, so all those folks have to have done that. The online training is available through your registry account once your staff are confirmed. Again, we have information down here about the free online training and Care for Kids compliance in this one. The ongoing PD is checked by licensing staff for licensed programs, and for our DCEX, our license exempt programs that take Care for Kids that are in this training, know that you guys are all up for desk audits to check on that over time. There is an annual attestation that has to be done in the registry as well. And so I say here, and I probably should have put it like in a big shout out bubble, please use these TA documents. They are super helpful. They've got screenshots of how to get to the training that you're trying to get to, the 5-hour or the 18-hour. They're in different places within the training because of the length of hours. And then the compliance and the different things that you need to be looking at there. We're really excited for so many of you using the unlimited online training, right? It is not meant to be a be-all, end-all, but it is a nice gift. So take a gander through the library and say to your staff, hey, I'd like all of us to take this training before next staff meeting, and we're going to talk about it. There's a lot of information in there. You can make it staff-wide. You can use it in performance reviews and say to Susie Snowflake, hey, I know you're really interested in thinking about taking on more leadership. How about you and I work out a plan of what trainings you'll take here and figure out next steps. So definitely help your budget out. Take a look at that. Free unlimited access to that training. Definitely a nice help. All right. So before we open it up for questions from program administrators, I just want to say a really big thank you, because I know that time is precious. And I love when I hear from you guys, because we get to hear obviously all the things that you don't like, but we also do hear things that you do like. And please, as life is hard and the world is hard, please remember to give those shout outs to your ed advisors also. Karen, Tiffany, Val, and Margaret work super hard. And so we definitely will own our mistakes and work harder, but we also like to hear the positives and pass that on up the line. We want you to make a plan. So think about, how you can get things in motion. Set that calendar task so that the 1st of every month or the 15th of every month, whatever it is that works for you, you know that this is what you do. You go in, you get that done. It's a nice check off, stays on your calendar until you do it, so you have that system in place, that accountability. Do things, simple things like, just talking about the online training and the scholarships and staff meetings. We will be super happy to talk to you about any details. We have so many staff who are taking advantage of doing college courses and working toward degrees, stayed steady through the pandemic, some who have taken some breaks and come back. That's all fine. Love to hear about it. Let us know what we can help with. Let us know about challenges that you're having. We will do our best to make the tools more user-friendly as we go along. And now I'm going to ask the grant program managers if they can help shout out any questions that were in the chat.
Hi, Margaret. This is Cheryl. I've been collecting them and I grouped them. Hopefully that'll make it easier for you. Let me just grab this last one off of the chat first, and then we'll be ready to go.
Sure thing.
Okay. So there were a couple of questions relating to creating a profile. And the first one is, has there been a delay in getting passwords reset? I've had one staff member unable to reset hers for weeks.
Okay, so I suspect that falls into a little bit of problem solving. And I'm going to slide back. So for those of you who get motion sick, just hold tight for a second, because I'm going to go back to staff confirmation. Okay, so the very first thing that I would do, now that you know a little bit more about what you can see and also about how we changed security recently, the very first thing that I would do is I would, as the admin access user, go to staff confirmation, click view profile, and I would look to see what email address the staffer's using. So this goes back to my, is the email address current? So if it's no longer active, it doesn't matter how many times that person tries to reset the password, because reset password just sends an email to that address and you have to click on it. So if they don't have access to that Gmail account anymore, not going to matter. You're going to have to call us. But mostly, a lot of folks are getting a little bit stuck around, I'm trying to see how far back I have to go for this, the security. Here we are. Okay, so when they have forgotten their password, the forgot your password click right here is what they need to do. It'll ask them to enter in their email address, and then it's going to send them an email. It's been very prompt. I think originally it was saying like within 30 minutes, but it's super, super fast. I haven't known anybody that's taken that long. If they're not getting that email, first off, check the spam folder. All right. Second off, again, make darn sure you're sending it to the right email address that's attached to the account. You would be amazed how many people have sworn to me that this is the email address they use for the account, and I look at their account and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I stopped using that a year ago. Right, so that's number one problem. The forgot your password link will expire. So as I said before, if you're using it, make sure that you're in a place where you can, use it within an hour, a couple hours. If you're using it, you click on it in the morning and it triggers an email, and then you don't have time to go back to it until that night, it will have expired. Just trigger another one. It'll send you a new one. When you get that, you literally click the link and it says, put in your new password and retype it again to confirm it. Submit it, you're done. And then you can log in. So those are the steps I would say, but definitely checking that email address to begin with, because you would be amazed how many people change their emails or they messed up putting it in the very beginning. Thanks, Cheryl.
You're welcome. Next question is, a lot of times the email, I actually may have just covered this, I'm sorry. It's about an email that is no longer used. And what's the next step? So they would follow the same process? Or
for if they know that the email address that they used for their login, they don't have access to it anymore, they're going to have to contact us. So they would look on the contact us and email their county lead and say that they need to reset it. And typically we have to do a phone call to the person to verify that you are who you say you are, right? Think again about security. Super, super tight about this kind of stuff. And I know it can be annoying because it's like, well, they're in a classroom, but it'll be pretty quick and painless once we get through it. We just need to talk to them. We'll ask them a couple of questions to confirm their identity, and then we can change the password.
Okay, great. The next group of questions relate to staff qualifications and confirmation. Question is, what do we put in the ECE degree box if the person is planning on getting their ECE degree but is still currently getting their general education requirements out of the way?
Great question. Yep, so if they are, hop back over to my staff confirmation page. All right, so we're talking about this part right here, currently enrolled in an ECE degree, yes, no, projected year, and the institution. So based on what that example said, Cheryl, that person is actually enrolled in an ECE degree program. They may just be, and as you said, the general ed classes, but it's leading into it. So they're matriculating in that degree program. So they would say yes. They would give their projected year, graduation year, which is on the plan of study, and then pick the institution and submit it to save it. And celebrate. Don't forget to celebrate.
Okay, how do we delete a person that is no longer employed by the program?
Yep, great. So you're going to put in an end date up here, end them, click no for confirmation, click submit, then you'll get a pop-up that says, do you really want to drop Buffalo Bob? Well, it says something like that. Do you really want to unconfirm Buffalo Bob? And you say yes, and then he's gone. He's offload. His bubble is released from your program and is floating as currently unemployed until Buffalo Bob picks up somewhere else. That's how you get people off your program.
So one individual stated that they went in to update their staff confirmation today, but the date did not change.
So I would ask them if they toggled no, yes, right, and submit. So if you're not making any changes, and I will say that the majority of the time there is some change. And what we want to make sure is that people are not just going down and clicking submit, because what we have found is sometimes we have programs that are showing as within the past 30 to 45 days, they've got a last update date. And then we look and it's like, wow, we have people making $11 an hour. This has not been updated in years based on minimum wage, right? So just make sure, really, 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 truly, please check your data, do the view all to see everybody, or check that qualifications detail report so you can do the quick at a glance, see what changes need to be made. And then I would toggle no, yes, submit, so that then you've got the change. Great question.
Okay. So next, do you have to confirm each one separately if everything remains the same?
Oh, very good question. I did not say that before. Good question. No, you do not. You just do one. Any one will do to change the page.
Okay, and the last question for confirmation is, can you tell me again why it says inactive?
Inactive means because they have not renewed their account. Every year, we ask that the account get renewed. An email automatically triggers to the account holder that reminds them to go in. So it's time to go in and do your renewal. When they log in, it disallows them from doing anything else until they look at their data and click, yep, all good, renew.
Okay, so now we're going to move to the classrooms. And I only have one question there. Should a program delete a classroom if it is currently closed due to a staff shortage and or low enrollment?
That is a good question. And for that, it's a little bit of a case by case. So I don't want anyone to hear this as an absolute. If you're saying that it's closed and we're probably not reopening it, or we have no sense of when it's going to reopen, I personally would delete it because it's going to keep showing up in all of my compliance reports that is wonky, that's not meeting different things, right? If it's that it's closed for a week for COVID cleaning or something, which we hear less and less about all the time now, I would just say leave it. But again, I would kind of do that on a case-by-case basis and say, is it going to get in the way of your monitoring? Is there really no set plan, no set timeline for this? Then easy enough to delete it. If you were super worried about, well, what did I say was there last time? You can take some screenshots and then redo it later. But that's kind of where I would stand on it.
And Margaret, with that question, would it make a difference if they were continuing to allocate state-funded spaces to that classroom, even though the spaces were not filled, in order to keep them to be able to show the number of spaces that they have allocated throughout the program? Would that be a reason for them to keep the classroom on?
Wow, I'm so glad you're on the call, Cheryl, because I'm going to say that part of my answer, it goes back to grant program managers on that, because I'm not entirely sure about how we pay for spaces if they're not being used. If my thinking, and you can tell me how wrong I am, is that if I have a classroom that is not being used, but it previously had, let's say, 10 school readiness slots in it, I would move those school readiness slots into another room if I could. If I'm not using the slots, I think that has to go back to grant program managers. Is that right?
I think that would be a good idea for them to come to the program managers and we could have a conversation about it and get the details, because there could be nuances in each different situation. We might have to decide on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely when there is funding attached to a classroom, that's when it gets even more funky than just we have this random classroom. Because I'll tell you that leaving a classroom open, like, it will still show up on your NAOIC report. We'll be looking for a designated QSM for that room for QSM compliance. So it doesn't always work in the program's favor to leave it in limbo rather than delete it.
Okay, I know we're about to time to wrap up, but I have a few more questions about QSM and the care for kids. Can a QSM also be the administrator?
That's a great question. And here's kind of where we land on QSM. Let me see which way we go. So in order for an administrator to be able to have a dual role as a designated QSM, the classroom in which the administrator is the QSM has to allow for that. So if, let's say, the classroom is a full day classroom, you would not be able to have an administrator also be the designated qualified staff member, because the policy requires that the designated QSM is there the majority of the hours that the classroom is open. So typically we don't find that to be true. We find it to be acceptable when there might be a part day option, right? So the room is legitimately open from 9 to 12. The administrator covers that room and then does their administrative duties in the afternoon. That's a really good question, and it's super, super specific, but it does require a little bit of digging in to see the hours that the classroom is open, which liaisons and program managers and admin access users can see through the tools. So it takes a little backing into.
Also relating to QSM, if a teacher has an approved QSM plan in place but is not qualified yet, how do we designate that?
So I'm not sure what an approved QSM plan is. I'm not aware of what that is. Is there any more detail around that?
The GP does address if a staff member is not
Okay.
QSM qualified, that they would need a plan of study in place.
Okay. So the program will show up as non-compliant during that time, but on monitoring, whether by OEC or from the contracting, the grantee or the liaison, they would dig into those details. But the program will show as non-compliant in the tools.
Okay. And what does it mean when QSM says non-qualifying degree, and how do we make it a qualifying degree?
So a non-qualifying degree to make it a qualifying degree. In the options that are showing up here on the left, right, that list all of the opportunities that are here. It's a little tricky, and I am challenged every year when the legislation changes because the legislators try very nicely to make this easier and give programs time, but sometimes it makes it really complex, and they inadvertently make things not count. And so then OEC turns around and says, okay, well, that would be silly of us. So like down here where it says the OEC also recognizes any non-qualifying degree not mentioned above ladder level 9 or higher. So technically in the legislation, if you had a degree that was not listed in these other ones, it wouldn't count at all. And what we are saying is that we would take the associate degree in a non-ECE associate degree plus 12 credits and count that at this level while that person then works toward a qualifying bachelor degree option. So I hope that makes sense. And then things like a bachelor degree non-ECE plus 12 ECE credits, that person can be working on their early childhood teacher credential, the ECTC. All right, so that's a way to get it to bump as well, or to get it to be recognized from one expiration date to the ultimate expiration date. So I hope that makes a little more sense. I know it's complex, but we try not to make people feel like their work was worthwhile, was worth less, and to recognize them for it.
So Margaret, there are a number of questions left, and I understand we ran out of time. We were supposed to move on to the liaisons now, so we can collect them and perhaps answer them and send out the responses after the meeting, if that works for you.
Sure. We can also look at a second round, just an FAQ open mic kind of thing.
That would be great.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody who joined the first part of the program. And now we'll move on to just the liaisons. Cheryl, anything else you want to add in before we move forward?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
All right.
It was wonderful.
There's a lot. I know it's a lot, and that's why I'm thankful that we're recording and that so many of these tools live in places where everybody can see them.
So those of you who are with programs, feel free to sign off now. As I said, this will just be focused on the liaisons and their role in monitoring. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
And if you stay on, man, you just can't get enough of this registry, can you? It is packed. All right, so welcome liaisons. I'm super happy that you guys were here. Hopefully you were here for the first part because I feel like there's so much useful information in there for you to be able to use as you talk to your programs and help them navigate things, and even for you to figure out all this topsy-turviness of everything. So we're going to have kind of 3 buckets that we're going to talk about: the registry expectations for OEC funded programs for the liaisons, the liaison tools, and then making plans. And y'all have kind of 2 key general policies. So A03, which is the registry one, has this piece on the slide that is specific to the liaisons, right? So it talks about how there is going to be a liaison for each program, that they have an account. We give you access to the program information. You're required to do a quarterly check of each program's education qualifications and progress toward meeting and maintaining with both NAOAC and the state legislation, so the QSM. And then to work on action plans with the program administrators for those that don't meet those pieces. And then GPCO1 gets into a bit about the role of the liaison. So I pulled this screenshot out of the, I can't remember what it's called, an appendix or an addendum to CO1, but it's listed with CO1 and kind of gives you, there's a really nice meaty list of all kinds of things that are in here. So let's take a little walk and we'll see what you have access to and how we expect you to use it in your monitoring. So hopefully all of you have this document, information for school readiness liaisons and facilitators. I believe that Christy and Cheryl sent it out again, but this is kind of similar to what I was saying to the programs about the QSM step-by-step instructions. This TA document is, again, a very linear, walk you through all the different things that you have, give you helpful hints on, what's available on each screen, things that we want you to think about, questions that it can prompt with the programs. All right, so that's the first thing that I would say to keep handy. And thank you to all of you who have helped to inform it, because we have revised it quite a bit over time. And I think we're due up for another revision to it, as with all things. But here's where we hop in now. And I think you might have seen before, this is my Howdy Doody screen. And so sometimes I tag him in as a facilitator or a liaison. What's the difference between the two? We'll just start with that for a second. So liaison's pretty straight up. You're a school readiness liaison. You are tagged to view the program data of any program tagged with that community's funding. A facilitator access is used for AQIS facilitation staff, who also get read access to their programs reports. It's also used with child daycare contractors, because sometimes we have contractors who then subcontract out, and they need to be able to oversee their programs, but they don't need administrative access to those. So again, these are read access to reports. When you click on liaison reports, you should be able to see 2 summary reports at the top, which will give you all of your QSM compliance for all of your programs together, instead of clicking into every single one, and a state-funded approval system report, again, for your programs. So those are the ones that are summaried. And then under program reports, it is a drop down of however many programs to which you have access based on who's tagged with that kind of funding. If you don't see one of your programs here that you know has school readiness funding, that's when you would contact your grant program manager. So you'd say, Cheryl, Christy, I don't see 123 program on my list. And sometimes they say, we didn't know that that had funding. What happened here? And sometimes they say, oh, okay, we got to go in and tag it, and then you'll see it. So simple enough. And also the reverse. If you have a program that changed out and, we have, I said registry is small but mighty, and I will tell you that grant program managers are small but mighty as well. And so thank you for bearing with our human natures, trying to keep up with all the work. Just let us know if you see something or you don't see something. So when I click on one of my programs, I get all these reports. That should look totally familiar to you. They are the same reports that the program sees. The only difference in your program reports is that for your staff qualifications detail report, you do not get to see wages listed. So again, this is the report that has all the information from the staff confirmation tab. And we do not show you the wages for that, but everything else you see exactly the same as the program sees it. And that's really helpful as you talk to them, because you're pulling up the same thing and you're saying, let's talk about this. Tell me about, wherever this data is. But we're going to take a walk through some of these now. So let's hop on. And essentially, what I'm telling you and showing you is these are screenshots directly from that TA document that Christy and Cheryl sent out. And so all the helpful hints and everything you see here, it's right in that document. I did not recreate the wheel. I looked at it and I said, our team did a good job the first time through. We're just going to keep this. So let's take a walk. This is your staff qualifications detail report. You're always going to see at the top the name of the program, the registry ID number of the program, and here's that infamous last updated date that triggers from the staff confirmation page. If this were one of your programs, you would say, holy smokes, you are way non-compliant. Last updated September 11th of 2019. We got to have a quick chat. Got to change that right away, right? That's how that triggers. That's where you're going to see it. A lot of folks ask us questions about the ladder levels, right? This is for the ECE credits and degrees that count on the ladder. Some folks have other things that don't count on the ladder. OEC Connecticut is specific to what we will count. We don't want people to think that their other work doesn't matter. It just means that we're looking for early childhood specific in this case. You'll see the data hire over here, right? You'll see the staff confirmation page role. So this is a good thing to think about, because we have many, 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 many roles up front in staff confirmation. When we get around to assigning staff to classrooms, we narrow it down to a really short list for NAOIC purposes. So you'll see that later when we move along too. But this column A shows all the many possibilities. You'll see very different things over there. We've got everybody's ID number. This is the section that we talked about who's going to school. So why is this important? Because if you're looking over here at QSM eligibility and who's assigned, and you see no, 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 and then you see people not going to school here, this is a big, let's open up this can of worms. Let's talk about all these staff that you have and how can we get some folks on the path to credentials and degrees. Let's talk about scholarship. Let's talk about next steps. Let's talk about your performance review system and how you use that in order to set goals, right? Research tells us that it's better for kids when teachers have formal education. It doesn't mean they're not good teachers. We are not saying that, but we are saying that there are some pretty solid things in research about formal education. So this is a yes. We want folks working on things here. You can see there's a 2020 here, which is in the past. So that would also be a, hey, you updated or didn't update, and you got some stuff out of date here. Who's been assigned, who's QSM eligible, are those dates coming up, or are they the beautiful 2099s? These are the ones we want to see. That's the pie in the sky. It's a hard time, but those are still the pie in the sky ones. Other pieces on here. So as I said before, wages are not listed on your report because that is protected information. Okay, admin and MSA access users can see that. We don't want them sharing that report with you. Sometimes they'll say like, oh, well, they asked me for that report, and they don't maybe know enough to delete out those columns before sharing it, if it's for an RFP or whatnot. But you would want to say specifically to them, I can tell you how to delete those columns before you print that report or whatnot. And with all of the reports in the registry, there are so many that have so many columns because there's a lot of data that we want to share with you, make sure that you have. But we don't want you to go and print reams of paper. So always look to see first what it is that you're looking for and looking at before you click print. The NAEYC report, so this has a few key things behind it. For the program to print it, they have to make sure that there's a teacher in every classroom, right? This ties back nicely to that question about what if I have a classroom that we're not using anymore, right? Well, we don't give a time lapse on it. If you say that there's a classroom, we're looking to see who's in it and if it's compliant. And so the NAEYC report will only trigger an official if every classroom has a teacher and all of the confirmed staff have been assigned a role. All right. A little note up here, so the teaching staff that are showing as unassigned in a room, those are floaters. That's our way of being able to allow them to show as a floater, but otherwise they're assigned to a room. This is the only report that functions as or that prints as a PDF. So that's under our agreement with NAEYC, so that it can be harder to manipulate. A little more fraud prevention on this, since it serves as a proxy going to NAEYC. Really important, when you look at this report, it's really great that there is this summary table down here, but the subsequent pages to this are also important to look at because they have the keys. One of them says all of the NAEYC options. So over here, when it says what the option is and if the person meets one for their role, that's important to look at. And then the other one is the career ladder level key. In red up here, we call this out. Just remembering the criteria are now always assessed but not required. So that's been a few years now that NAEYC made that change. So just making sure that everybody is aware of that. One of the things that we continue to work on is having MSA access. So those multi-site access administrators show up in multiple places. So you may have a program that has an MSA, operational administrator, pedagogical administrator. They're not showing up on one of your reports though, because they're showing up on their primary site report. They can show that to you so that you can see, okay, operational administrator, howdy doody. So the person is assigned and they are meeting this. Right? But important to note, with NAEYC, we also have an agreement that says that with MSAs, they can send their primary site report and then the site report for whichever program they're having to submit. That's just a little note about that. We continue to work on some of those things that are more complex. Staff education training reports are a fun spot to go to when you are trying to figure out what is going on in programs. So if you're having conversations with the program about professional development counseling and who's got what, this is the place where you can go in to see if they have any degrees or certifications on file, any coursework called out, or any other training. Good place to start to say, you know, well, I see that you have your associate's degree in early childhood. That's a great stepping stone to a bachelor's degree. How about we talk about that, right? Or if someone says, I've sent everything in, I don't know what's going on, you can look this up and say, yeah, maybe we coded it as an associate's degree in elementary ed, or we said it's non-early childhood. All right, also important distinctions. We have policies around what we can take for early childhood, and there's an appeal process for that. But that's a good place to start and have a conversation with them. When things expire, they do need to send us the new one. So if they have a CDA credential and it expires and they're the QSM, they will no longer be the QSM when that CDA expires. If they have teacher certification that crosses them to QSM compliance and that expires and we don't have the renewal, that will also drop them. So keep an eye on those expirations. That's a good thing to look at. A lot of those are multi-year, and the system does send out automatic emails to say, in 6 months this is happening, in 3 months it's happening, and now it's expired and it's dropped off of your education and training report. So we do our best to remind folks. Again, another reason why it's super important for them to check to make sure their email address is still correct that they have on account. Because if we're sending those emails out to remind them that something is expiring and they're not using it anymore, it's just going nowhere. All right, designated QSM summary report. So this, again, these are the program by program reports that you have. This is the way for you to look very quickly at one program and see what's going on. And when you pull up the TA document from Christy and Cheryl, it has all these notes attached to it, much more detail. But at a quick glance, again, right, you're looking at this last update date. You're looking to see how many classrooms are in the program. And is this accurate? Right? In your monitoring, you will see if a program has 10 early childhood classrooms when you go to visit. You know this, you know what's going on. But in the registry, it says 2. And then they look compliant. And you're going to have to say to them, let's have a little chat, help me understand this. Because maybe they don't understand that it's every applicable classroom, and they're thinking it's just their funded classrooms. So it's a little chat. These are chat opportunities. So 2 classrooms here, they both have assigned QSMs. So that means that they are going to meet the initial benchmark, because we won't let anybody be assigned as a QSM if they don't meet one of the benchmarks. And you can see up here for Buffalo Bob and Selena Gomez, these are their expiration dates and why. They have it in the rooms to which they are assigned. And then you would see state funding over here if there was funding attached in those rooms. So things that make you ask questions, right? So down here I can see that because both of the classrooms have designated QSMs, 100%, so that's a good thing. They meet the second benchmark for July 1, 22 to 25, with at least 50% having an associate degree or higher, and the remaining having a CDA or not qualifying degree. They're good there, and then this is where they drop off. So here's your opportunity to talk about goals, right? They have one with a qualifying goal, and then the other person has dropped off. Tries to give you enough information, and I will tell you, we change this every time the legislators change it, and that is part of my biggest frustration. And I will come back on in another meeting if this happens again this year to tell you what this is going to look like and how it'll get restructured. But for now, at least, know that you can jump in here and have some good conversations, because good PD planning is just always a good thing. So whether or not QSM changes, it's good to have knowledgeable teachers. All right, y'all also have those 2 summary reports, and one of them is all of your programs combined in the designated QSM compliance report. It is really, really long, right? And you may remember when I told the administrators to look at the instructions for program administrators, because that has detail of every single report in it, as does the TA document Cheryl and Christy sent you. So if you ever get stuck on site, you're trying to find something, remember that it also lives there. Just some questions to help you think about how to use it. How many classrooms does the program have? Right, we just kind of talked about that. If you don't see all the classrooms there, you know that they have to finish building their classrooms. So they can go back to those QSM instructions and they can go to building the rooms and walk through that. Are they all listed? And I would add to this too, like, you know, does it make sense? When you look at that list, can you tell when you are holding your laptop and you walk in the program or you have a printout, can you actually see the blue room, the yellow room, the pink room, the green room, whatever it is? Or are you guessing at everything? Can you connect all of the dots? We want it to be super easy. What they put in there for the classrooms, we hope is the accurate thing. So you can walk in and say, and today I'm going to the orange room where I should see Selena Gomez and Thomas Magnum. And that should be accurate. The second one, are the staff listed correctly, right? Are you constantly just asking, like, wait, who are these staff? This is not the same as what's in the registry. Let's go back, have that conversation with the administrator. How often are you doing the updates? You know, maybe they're doing the monthly update, but they're having some really wonky staffing stuff going on, and they are moving staff like hot potatoes. This is not good for children, right? We know this. And it's not good for staff either, for mental health. So it's a conversation then to have about, let's talk staffing. Let's take a step back. Let's see where you are with everything. Do we need to talk about where you are with your salary structure? Do we need to talk about what you're doing for recruitment? Are they a good opportunity for Women's Business Development Council to have a chat about budgeting and where their money is and how they can do things a little bit better to put more money in compensation, right? So lots of conversation starters. Does every classroom have a designated QSM, right? So a lot in this report, and it breaks it out by the age grouping of each classroom. It identifies how many staff meet the QSM benchmarks. Lots of opportunities in there. And then when do the QSMs expire? Again, trying to make sure that we're focusing in on that 2099 expiration date. The approval system report. All right, so remember how way back, I'm going to flip back. So everybody with motion sickness, hold on. I'm going to go way back for a second and talk about back here. So for the program, they see this in their program profile, right? This is the section we're talking about, accreditation and reporting. They have to send in their documents to prove that they are meeting and maintaining. So all these different benchmarks are the ones that we're looking for. You don't see this profile. What you end up seeing is the approval systems report. So now I'm going to go fast forward again. Hold on to your hats. And we are back here. All right, so these are all of the fields. There are a few more that I just hid some of the ones because it tells you the other funding too that's in the different programs. But these are the ones that you're looking at. And so your questions when you look at that report, your first question should be, is my program NAIC accredited or Head Start approved? Right? And if neither, then you're looking for the accredit by date, state funded accredit by date. Right? And then you know that you want to be seeing documents as you go along. Right? You should be seeing an NAIC enrollment. You should be seeing NAIC application, right? Bit by bit. What should you see in relation to their expiration or approval date? That's what you're looking for. If they're already accredited, right, they're working toward reaccreditation. Are you seeing the annual report dates? Have they been sending those in? Was their accreditation decision report from last time in? Right? We have a saying of not going backwards, but being current and going forward. If you have a program that is getting ready for reaccreditation, we are not wanting them to go back 8 years and find their enrollment paperwork or their application paperwork from their first time in the system, right? So try to do this balance of, all right, you're about to submit year 4. What do we need you to submit now? And then have these conversations about our accreditation quality improvement support project. Are they taking advantage of the free offerings? If they're within 2 years of their reaccreditation, have they put in an application for support? We want them to take advantage of those opportunities. We have a lot of expertise in our facilitation staff on AQIS, and they will help you to help that program to meet their timeline. All right, monitoring, right? So here's just an example of where things get wonky. I showed you the near snapshot before about wages. So this is a snapshot about school readiness funding, and this is classrooms that have school readiness funding. So if you look down here, we had 771 classrooms tagged with funding, but of those, 143 did not have designated QSM. And so there are a lot of possibilities there, right? Like it doesn't mean necessarily that the program doesn't have anybody that meets an option to be a designated QSM. It could mean that it's an inactive classroom that they just have not deleted, or it's an active classroom and they do need to go in and tag somebody in there. Do you see where I'm going with this? Conversation starters. Part of your monitoring is documenting where programs are with everything, but then you are that navigator, facilitator, right? Helping them to connect the dots, talking to them about opportunities that the OEC has. And again, I use documenting, 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 which leads me to this, make a plan, right? So I love to hear from program administrators and liaisons and facilitators about what works. And similar to how we talk about admin access users, liaisons that have monthly calendar tasks. And I say, even if you just save the 2 summary reports, I was just talking to a liaison who does this, and she was saying how she had gone back and she had questions because she noticed like there were these big changes, and she wanted to make sure she was reading the reports correctly, and she was. She'd done a great job. I thought it was fantastic that she had gone ahead, she made herself a task, she downloaded and saved the summary reports, and she said, I think I'm actually going to start pulling these other reports too, not all of them. She had a couple key ones. You'll figure out which ones you love, right? So figure out what your task is. And then at program check-ins, this liaison was also saying she pulls up a screen, and we've heard many of you end up doing this, and you talk about the details. You have the conversations, and you can say to the admin access user, you go ahead and you look at your screen, I'll look at mine, right? And we'll walk through this together. Let's see where we can go. Let's see what staff we can help to move along. Or let's just build a classroom, right? Some of this is just, I need you to maybe sit down, force me to close my door, and we're going to walk through this process. And once it's done, you realize it's not as intimidating and threatening as it felt like before. I tell my kids often, like, don't put off things because they become the big ugly. They get bigger than they really are if we just buckle down and do them and handle them, much less ugly. And then you think, that's it. I got this. I totally got this. Right? Your quarterly meetings with programs. All right. What's the last updated date? And I say, is it current? Is it really? Is it really now? If I have folks who are still in school, who have a projected graduation year of 2019, 2016, we were doing some cleanup over the summer, and man, we had some really outdated stuff, right? So take a look at those things. Or if you are talking with the program and you know they just hired a bunch of staff a couple months ago, are those staff still working here? I don't see their names in here. I don't see any dates of hire that are within the past 3 months, but I know you hired. Right? Are the classrooms and assigned staff correct? Are they current? You have those reports. You can pull them up and look at all those details. QSM compliance and the plans to be compliant. Again, Cheryl was just saying that part about in the GP, it allows a program to make a plan to show that somebody is working toward QSM compliance, that then the OEC takes into account. The program will still show as non-compliant in the reporting, but you have documentation in place then that says to the council and to OEC, this program is making steady progress on their QSM compliance versus this program has made no progress on their compliance. Care for Kids, if applicable, you can take a look at that to see where they are within their orientation compliance, meeting and maintaining. And then obviously NAIC accreditation and Head Start approval documents. Are there dates? Have they submitted things? Where are they with that? So I think what I'm wanting you to take from this is you have some key tools here, and really it's the questions that you then pull from those and the time that you set with the programs to go over them. You are a great assistance to them, And it comes in a variety of forms. As I said, you might be helping them to just even log in for a minute. Let's do the last update date, right? All the way to fantastic. We are talking scholarship. We are getting folks through these degree programs. We have folks who are interested in CDA credentials, or we just have folks who might want to think about doing some of this online training through their registry accounts. Let's go. Let's get this done. Right? PD comes in small steps, and it comes at different times for different people. So make a plan. This is our key to you. Make a plan leaving here. That's my last slide. So now I'm going to open it up to the grant program managers to tell me what other questions are there.
We don't have any at the moment, Margaret.
Is everybody asleep? How about put y'all to sleep? Is there anything you can think of, Cheryl?
No, I just that liaisons need to keep in mind and make sure that councils are aware that, you know, these are part of the requirements, the funding requirements for receiving allocations. And so when programs are requesting additional spaces or adding new sites, this should be taken into consideration in regards to their compliance, you know, with not just with staffing, but with all the registry requirements. Have they maintained you know, their accreditation and a Head Start documents in the registry? I know it's been a challenge for us as program managers. Right now, we're trying to identify which programs need an ERS. And so there are programs that may be on the list that are appearing not to be compliant, however, or have maintained accreditation, so they may be on that list, but they need to ensure that they upload those documents, because we don't want to you know, schedule an ERS if it's not necessary, if the program has already achieved accreditation. So just things like that, and just it's important too. We've had a number of programs over the last few years who have been deferred or who have not renewed their accreditation, and so it's important that the programs maintain the registry with those documents, so that way you can track their progress through that process as well, and try to help them along and question if they are not meeting, you know, the timelines in regards to why, and so that way they're not all of a sudden finding out that they've missed their deadline and they're no longer accredited, because that will impact their funding.
That is such a great point, Cheryl, and I will add to that that NAYC has been struggling as well, and so asking your programs questions about where they stand is super important. We're hearing that NAYC also has a backlog of visits and that they are extending programs, and they are meant to communicate those extensions, but sometimes programs stumble across these, and it is not a good feeling about the system, but we are all trying to help move things forward. I think that sometimes programs think we have a direct line from Registry to NAYC's data system, and we do not. So oftentimes the program sending us those documents is going to help make sure that they are updated, rather than us waiting for something to come off of a website. But for sure, NAYC does not send us documents, right? So that's the big thing, is the evidence of moving forward, the evidence that the program has gotten those benchmarks done.
So during that time, we did get some questions in. First one is, of the 143 classrooms without QSM, are many of them in non-funded rooms? We have a hard time getting QSM in the infant toddler classrooms.
Oh, let's see, I have to go back to look at that slide, because I think the NEAR data was, they're tagged with school readiness. The classroom itself is tagged with school readiness funding. There you go. The classroom is tagged with funding. So it's not just the programs tagged with funding. That's a good question. I love that. Good differentiation in the data. Yeah, but in this case, the classrooms were specifically tagged with data or with funding and did not have a designated QSM. Good question.
Next question is for district programs. Are the health and safety, I'm assuming, They're asking about the health and safety requirements required. And those are requirements only for programs that receive care, that are participating with Care for Kids. So if you are an exempt district program who does not participate with Care for Kids, you are not required to meet those health and safety requirements.
Correct. Yeah, and so thank you, Cheryl, because that's a really good question too, because I think on the list of the reports that you have access to, the health and safety orientation report, you would not need to be concerned about that if the program does not take Care for Kids or plan to. It's a good informational thing, but in this world of like, I only have enough bandwidth for living in the moment, I would probably let that lie for now.
Okay, next question. I'm hearing from someone that the drop down for role only let someone choose operational admin or pedagogical. Is there a trick to picking both that I can pass along?
You do one at a time. So the person ends up doing operational administrator and then pedagogical administrator. And then if they were also a legit teacher in a classroom, they would do a third entry that is for teacher and tag the classroom.
Is there someone to call if so, the number so we can ask questions later?
Yes, at the bottom of every registry page is contact us, and that has the map of which ed advisor is responsible for which county. If you need bilingual, right now that is Margaret Westwood. If you have a specific question for ECTC, our contact us also, identifies some of the leads on things, like Tiffany Alexander is the lead on ECTC processing for registry right now. So take a look at that contact us click and follow up. And if you have a question for me later, feel free to use the contact us to see how to spell my name so the email gets here. I know it's a long one. Sometimes people spell it wrong and it doesn't get here. So take a look at that.
Okay. And we have one last question, just right on the button, almost 2:30. If we have someone working with or for the liaisons, can they get access to the registry reports?
So I know in the GP for, I believe it's CO1, Cheryl, for school readiness liaisons, it does talk about the ability to subcontract work and what's involved there. Correct. So I would defer them back to the general policy, and then any liaison requests have to go through your grant program manager. So you would be following up in that way as well. And I'll just add one more thing about contacting us. I will say that email is best. We have been challenged by phones where we're not getting a lot of information. We play a lot of phone tag with people, and it gets super frustrating for y'all when you can't get a hold of us, and then it's frustrating on our end too, or we get the wrong numbers and stuff. So generally, I always think email is best because people have to verbalize more things. I don't generally just get I have a question, call me kind of email. I tend to get here's what I'm seeing, here's what I tried, is this right, what's wrong kind of thing. So I would say email also because we are still mostly remote, and although ed advisors do check the phones several times a day, there is a very big backlog of calls because of Care for Kids right now, and we're trying to just navigate as much as we can. So the less back and forth we have to do with everybody, the better. The more detail you can get right up there in an email, or if you have to phone, make sure there's enough detail for us to really get down to the crux of the matter and get a hold of you right away.
Okay. And Chris Badenhop sent in a question about templates for the action plan. I'm assuming you mean for meeting QSM requirements, Chris. There is not a specific template that OEC provides for districts to use or programs to use with staff. And that's it.
All right. Well, awesome questions. Appreciate everybody's time, and we will be more than happy to come back and do a kind of open mic session as well. Think about, kind of next steps. As I said at the end of the portion for the program administrators too, we always love to have questions, comments, and successes. So please remember to shout out to each other when you have systems that work and you find things that are really great for helping you navigate. Share with everybody. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, Christy. Thanks to all the program managers. I don't know who's still on, but thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
All right, have a great day, all.